There have been a lot of very interesting headline stories that have been coming out around retirement plans, pensions, 401ks, IRAs. We're going to be looking at that particularly as it regards the 401ks and your ability to take withdrawals. We're going to be looking at all of that and more coming up. I'm Lynette Zhang, Chief Market Analyst here at ITM Trading, a full-service physical gold and silver dealer specializing in custom strategies to help you survive and thrive through the upcoming crisis that frankly has already begun. And all of my work shows you what's happening beneath the surface so that you get to make educated choices. And frankly, there's nothing more interesting than what's happening with the retirement plans because, as you know, if you've watched any of my other videos on this topic, well, we are already in the middle of a retirement crisis. Now, I do talk a lot about the Dutch and the Netherlands recently, and in fact, you might recall that they were one of the beneficiaries on the Euro area arrangement. And yet, one of two, by the way, and yet, here you go, the Dutch government tries to avoid cuts to the pension payouts. Sorry, you can tell we're doing this live. But that is a pay-as-you-go system, which is similar to the Social Security system here. It is a pay-as-you-go. So they don't have those reserves. It's whoever's working, paying into that plan, that money then goes to beneficiaries. Now, between that and their employer-run pension schemes, those are their words, not mine, that provides roughly about 80% of the average lifetime wages. So that's not of the best years, mind you, but you can see that people would be very dependent upon those two schemes for their living. However, many of them, the pensions as well as the pay-as-you-go system, are underfunded. And so they may end up cutting the system. And again, you've got to keep in mind that they were a beneficiary of the European Union. Germany first, then the Netherlands. And look at the problems that they're having. And what this really could well be is the canary in the coal mine to the broader global pension funding crisis. How is that going to work? There's going to be a lot of people that are in deep hurt. But in the meantime, something that I know that our U.S. viewers are going to find interesting is they came up, and it goes into effect in January, 3 ways to make 401k withdrawals even easier. First of all, we look at the old rules on the hardship withdrawals, which were limited to the amount of money you'd contributed into the plan. The new rules increase the potential pool of savings because it includes the employer matches and the profit sharing contributions, as well as the investment earnings, presuming there are investment earnings. Number 2, employers will no longer require you to take out a loan before applying for this hardship withdrawal, meaning that you don't have to pay this back. And number 3, you'll be allowed to contribute to your 401k immediately following the withdrawal. So where there used to be a 6-month waiting period, that's eliminated. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens from this, and if the avenues to tap that wealth, and then maybe, I don't know, your ability to create your own retirement plan, which is the choice that I personally made. I had a Roth IRA, and I took a distribution from it. I paid my taxes on it. I have a retirement plan, but it's one that I control, and it's outside of the system. And so therefore, even though the spot gold and the spot silver market are subject to manipulation, I have it in physical form, and I know its true value. So we need to pay attention to this. There are a lot of other things that are happening inside of that area, but we're entering a crisis period now. I also found this headline really interesting. Trusted professionals target the assets of Americans' elderly. Now, you might think that that's just phone fraudsters and greedy children, but that's not really the case. Good old Goldman Sachs is being sued for unlawful 401k management. And a lot of that has to do, and I've talked about this before, proprietary funds. So that means that Goldman would create a mutual fund, and then its brokers would guide you to those funds. I'm going to show you in a minute why that's not such a great idea, even though it would make some logical sense perhaps to you, but they don't have to work as hard for it, and they typically don't perform as well, and there are lots and lots of hidden fees, especially with funds of funds. That really means layers and layers of hidden fees. In addition, the SEC is probing AIG sales on retirement products. Wow, AIG, who got bailed out in 2008. Shocker. But they don't really have a fiduciary obligation, which means they don't have to do what's in your best interest first. And in fact, going back to the conflict of interest that you find in target date funds or any in-house mutual funds, well, what that means is they've created the fund. They're keeping all of that money in-house and all of that equity. And as soon as they keep equity in-house, guess what they get to do? They get to use it for their benefit. That's called hypothecation. And if they set up that contract through the City of London, which is where most of them are done, then there's no limitations on the number of entities that can use that same equity. But these are the top 10 largest fund managers. And the ones that I have underlined for a reason. And that's because they are participating, or they got a waiver and can now do interfund lending. I'm not going into this whole thing, but when they set up the 1940 Act on investment funds, it said that you cannot do interfund lending, which means loaning. If you have a money market fund and you have a high risk fund, those are supposed to be two separate entities. You cannot commingle those funds, or this fund cannot borrow money from this fund. Well, you can if you get a waiver. And actually, particularly, there weren't that many funds that took advantage of that or asked for waivers prior to 2008. But look at all the ones that have. 48 since 2008. You might want to pull the link from this on our blog and go in and see if what you're holding has gotten that waiver and can now do, and probably does, if they can, they probably do, interfund lending. Because you might have a money market fund that is in, let's say, a short-term government bond fund, money market fund, which you might perceive as being really safe. But they might also have this triple leveraged fund against all of these non-liquid and opaque kind of derivatives. Guess what? If there's a run on this fund, they can borrow money from your money market fund. So you need to keep in mind that if your investment company has the ability to do interfund lending, that whatever fund you're holding is only as risky as or only as safe, I should say, as their most risky fund. And I'm not kidding you about this. It will be tested when the crisis becomes apparent. That wealth that's held in there is most likely to be bailed in just like it has been in the past, except now they've legalized that even more. And there's one more piece to this that I want to show you today, because I applauded this when I saw it. And that is the fact that while the central banks want you to spend, it's all about the consumer. More and more people are feeling uncomfortable and they're saving. So what they're really doing is they're fighting the Fed. What's this? This fights the Fed. This enables you to become your own central banker and accumulate gold like they are, except then it becomes invisible and private in your possession. And I want you to keep in mind that when they reset the system, they revalue that fiat money. So in this country, dollars, but euros, yen, whatever, they revalue it against monetary gold. That's why you see all those central bankers accumulating it. They know the system is on very, very borrowed time, and they know that the internal fundamentals are deteriorating more and more rapidly. That's why it's so important for the stock market to go up, so you don't know that. But you do now, because we talked about it. So food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, shelter, get those things done. If we can be of service, that's what we're all here to be. And keep in mind that your financial shields are made out of physical gold and silver. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.